Good morning, everyone. We are students of 4th year BH presenting our urban design project. Our topic for this studio is open spaces and the city. This is a study into our understanding of open spaces in the city and how they can be revitalized to create a better human environment. This study pertains to the case of Shalimar Precinct. Open spaces are spaces which rupture the urban fabric of a city. These are spaces which are often neglected or either forgotten spaces for the people of the city. This is the result of improper planning of buildings without paying any heed to context or the neighboring buildings themselves. This has created multiple tapped spaces that cannot be used or have become a burden on the context. Our approach is to identify and study these spaces in order to understand them and attempt to revitalize them, making these spaces a part of the city. This enables us to improve the coexistence of humans with their environment. These are the large open spaces in Nashik city: the riverfront, the Shivaji Stadium, the police parade ground, the golf club, and the Dongre Vasti Gruha Maidan. Of these, we are working on the Shivaji Stadium precinct. The site is located in the heart of Nashik city. The area starts from Behar Signal to Sardar Vinsurkar Chowk across till the main road. The site is chosen because of its central location and the distinct characters of built forms in and around it. It serves as an amalgamation of the past, the present, and the future evolution of Nashik. These areas have the heaviest footfall in the city, owing to multiple factors like the central bus stand, multiple hospitals, sports stadiums, public schools, district court, the collectorate, the Zilla Parishad, and so on. It is also the main commercial hub of the city and was once the main transit routes between important cities. This region has undergone various changes throughout its hundreds of years in existence and has a huge untapped potential to become the central open space for a city-level interaction. The map denotes the extent of several green and open spaces in the selected site. Some of these green areas are trapped buildings or minimum accessibility and visibility. The possibility of aggregating these spaces in the core of the city provides us with a very unique opportunity to serve the public realm. Of the total 73 acres on the site, only about 20% of the site is covered in greenscapes. This study allows us to understand how the different types of open spaces exist and how they can be treated to serve the public realm. The open spaces in consideration are the land in front of the court premises, the Shivaji Stadium, the land in front of the collectorate, Nehru Garden, Red Cross Signal, Main Road area, Regional Super Specialty Hospital premises, the Shalimar Chowk, Shivaji Garden, Ambedkar Chowk Cemetery, Kalidas Parking, the HRD Center. Our objective was to define the open space in context with the urban fabric and understand how these spaces interact with each other and the people. After locating these spaces, we've tried to understand the potential each of them hold. The site is an amalgamation of various layers of activities, right from administrative buildings to sports stadiums and institutes. These buildings have a great heritage value with regards to the history of the city, right from structures to the functional activities, one can observe cultural influence present in the site's context. The Zilla Parishad Road is host to multiple activities throughout its length. We have the General Post Office, the Zilla Parishad itself, and a few cultural activities that involve Kalidas Kala Mandir, Mahatma Phule Kala Dalan, and the Shivaji Park. This area also has a greater concentration of hospitals and residential clusters. The first major street of Nasik, the main road, now has become a shopping area. The street is used by people from the city and surrounding villages. The entire street has commercials on the ground and residential above. Most of these buildings today have significant heritage value. Conducting the physical documentation was necessary to understand the scale of humans and the street in reference to the urban built forms.
The urban pattern of a city is made up of many different layers, and to understand the site, a thorough study has been done with the following attributes. Evolution of a city plays an important role in determining the factors that led to the growth of the city. Tradition, art, culture, and modern industries have made a deep impact on Nasik. During the era of Peshwas in 1751, the main bazaar road was the central core area. Post-Peshwa rule, city came under the British rule in 1818. Due to the prior existence and heavy usage of Old Agra Highway, CBS bus stand came into the picture. British shifted their administration core away from central area, and hence the boundary of the city extended with establishment of district court and collector's office. Initially, central major land parcel of the city was owned by Raja Bahadur. Later it was lent to the government and it got divided by paving of Tilak Road and Shivaji Road to connect the old city with central bus stand. Britishers established important structures like High School, Gymkhana, Home Guard Office, and the Golf Club, which showcased colonial architectural style. Owing to the district court, a lawyers' colony was formed on Mahatma Gandhi Road, which was later developed as a commercial complex in 1980. Nehru Garden and Shivaji Garden became the attraction point for the visitors. In 1987, Kalidas Kala Mandir was built, which became the central recreation hub close to Zilla Parishad, CBS, and court buildings. With the establishment of prominent structures, residential and commercial activities started coming up in and around these hotspots. The growth of commercial establishments with time is observed in privately owned shops and municipal markets. Sociocultural layer in community mapping helps us to understand the evolution of a city. It explains the character and nature of their use in urban space. As people form communities, which leads to different socio-cultural aspects to form urban comfort. In case of existing scenario, formation of communities tells us about the change in character. The layers of urban fabric are religion, architecture, economics, and politics. To study all the layers, social gathering helps in interaction among diversity of individuals of all abilities in large, medium, and small groups for social and community purposes. Religious gatherings helps us to identify the significance of community cohesion around which many urban residents' lives revolve. Religious architecture in cultural heritage constitutes a unique role as it is visible for a long time, witnessing the historic events. It forms communities and shows similar characteristics. Changing character of the streets during festive season is observed. This needs creation of a large gathering space in the city. Institution gathering mostly show medium groups of interactions. It provides flexible gathering spaces. As these gathering spaces are interdependent, they boost the economic development of the city while acting as a landmark. The map helps us to understand the location of eateries that are at a rise around the economically influential areas of the city. They are interdependent to all layers of socio-cultural aspects. Major food vendors are at nodal junctions which allow small level gathering spaces. Economic factors influence the migration of people and the development of a region. Along with the emergence of Mumbai-Agra highway, administrative buildings developed around the major roads which gave the cities a district-level dominance. It boasted various primary and secondary recreational activities like transportation, hotels, and entertainment emerging along the edge. Major traffic flow increased on connecting roads, which resulted in demand for land parcel of commercial activities. Increase in importance of land parcel resulted in increased land value. This gave rise to the growth of the city towards the west. Extension of city gave rise to various city-level activities which had started evolving around newly developed areas. Nashik Municipal Corporation was established along a major axis which connected CBS and Nashik Road. Nodes became important street edge element and various activities started developing along the primary street. This gave rise to commercial development. On primary roads, commercial development started which further influenced secondary and tertiary activities. This had major impact on the development of economy to the city. In the new development phase, there are a few occupational categories which connected the city with adjoining areas. Administrative and industrial areas were connected at district level. This gave work opportunities for people. Migration rates shot up and hence public facilities like transportation and parks started developing. Initially, farming was an important activity, hence settlement of farmers could be seen on the outskirts of the city. The interdependency of farming and commercials is seen which later contributed to the economical growth. Commercial and manufacturing aspects are the main influencing categories for economic development. Old core and the new development of the city showcase different functions. This cycle portrays how intercity linkages are formed due to commerce. Initially, manufacturing and selling of products both took place in the old core market. This is how different areas interlinked to the old core, which impacted the economic development. The map displays the developed occupational categories along the side. Each category is developed in zones according to the functional interdependency, that is primary, secondary, and tertiary. From riverside to market spaces to private enterprises, there is a shift of commercial activities from old core to the new city. Spread of cities towards the west was due to constant flooding of the river. New developed roads hosted main commercial zones at the edges which helped in boosting the economy. In the evolution of industrial zone, technological development gave rise to industrial districts within the city, leading to decentralization of it. Climate, availability of water and power, land location and development. These are main reasons for starting new industries in the city. Connection between cities resulted in development of dependent activities along the road, that is petrol pump, auto garage, workshop and cycle modes. Primary transports started developing along the edges. Commercial district was formed at Ravivar Karanja in the old core of Nasik. The travel pattern for shopping is governed by purchasing power, travel distance, varieties and means of transport. These factors govern the development of two commercial areas. This junction is the main connecting junction for the retail and wholesale area. Understanding mobility networks show and highlight area of prominence. The map shows all primary, secondary, and tertiary roads of site. According to the hierarchy, width of roads also varies. There is an interconnection between all these roads. In Old Nasik, building determines the road, but in new development, road patterns determine the position of the building. The main road is the first highway, and later, Old Mumbai-Agra Road emerged, which became the major link between the old city and new city. Administrative buildings and commercial complex started coming up around the primary road. The emergence of the old Mumbai-Agra highway had a major impact on city development. Along with the road came a major transportation hub, that is CBS, with petrol pumps and auto garages. Major traffic flow is on primary roads. Increasing traffic flow raised the need for technological advancement such as traffic signals, bus stops, and CCTV cameras. The map shows the bus route connecting the city and a future metro route. Along the bus route, taxi and auto rickshaw stands emerged. This gave a boost to various secondary and tertiary activities. Circle shows the walkable distance of 10 minutes marked from two major transport hubs, CBS and Shalimar. CBS connects to administrative buildings, schools, entertainment, and cultural district, whereas Shalimar connects schools commercial zones, and the old core of the city. The emergence of roads and an increase in traffic flow gave rise to the formation of nodes and informal activities along the edges. Thus, the footfall increased. These nodes signify the density of movement and circulation load. Every node is different from each other in sense of network connection, the volume of traffic load, activities, etc. Activities around nodes and traffic circulation collides with each other. Spillover of activities around nodes and road edges during festivals cause overcrowding which disturbs traffic flow. In Old Nasik, Sarkarwada was the first administrative building in the Peshwa period. Later, a new administrative block was introduced by the British Raj connected to the old Agra highway. Around this block, interdependent development started taking place like CBS, lawyers' chamber, print and rubber stamp shops, etc. India got independence from British, but the influence of their architecture was still followed. Prior British period, the concept of shared walls was present in which ventilation was taken care through courtyard. British introduced marginal spaces around the structures. The decision of giving foreground to structure is followed till now, which shows the importance of building. Developing city raised the need for new highway. So new Mumbai-Agra highway was introduced outside the city. The whole land parcel was open and was under the ownership of Raja Bahadur. Commercial development occurred on plots around the roads to attract customers. Later, whole chunk of land got converted into commercials by which many secondary streets came into picture. As spoken earlier, Shivaji Ground was physically and visually open from periphery, but political decisions were taken and it got trapped because of commercialization of the street edge. Similarly, the ground dedicated for B.D. Palikar School has been converted into pay and park.
Mapping of the site is essential to understand aspects like age of the building or the area which can be used as public realm. The understanding of built versus unbuilt spaces help us to define the expanse of urban spaces, its scale, approach, and thus its usability. The figure ground study reveals the degree of contrast between the large and small building footprints. From this study, solids are represented by the built form, whereas voids are represented by unbuilt and open to the public. This mapping is giving an identification of old and new city, where the old city structure share common wall and new developed structure share boundary walls. Knowledge plan is a figure and ground diagram which tells us about the connection between public and private space. Land coverage of building is visualized as solid mass and public spaces are represented as void. It also gives an idea of scale and footprint of buildings according to its usage. Within a city, it requires proper zoning pattern in relation to the function desired within the vicinity. Land use mapping refers to the manner of utilization of land, including its allocation and development. The study of land use pattern will help in a balanced distribution of different land uses in the newer developments. It shows the non-uniform distribution of activities in the site. The building age mapping allows us to assess the age of the building and identifying whether within each precinct a building can be identified as heritage or not. Also helps in understanding the evolution of the sites. How activities that happens on the site have influenced the growth of the site. Building condition mapping is necessary to identify scope for urban design interventions for betterment, especially for the old city. This also helps in introducing the adaptive reuse strategies to the building. In the urban transformation projects, this is the best tool to document the built form and in turn contributes to the character of the street, open space, or city. Mapping of the building heights is giving an idea of the scale and volumetric perception to these urban spaces, streets, open spaces, etc. The relation of building height to street width lend a character to the urban spaces, making it intimate, or monumental.
After collecting all this data, it was essential to understand how to use the data. So we studied 8 authors which would help us achieve the same. Our first author is Jan Gehl. Jan Gehl has an extraordinary vision where he talks about the city should be given back to the people. He states that currently the infrastructure is concentrated towards automobiles, which does not cater to a healthy city. His vision is to create a realm where pedestrians can walk safely. In our site, we can observe spaces which denotes Jan Gehl's perspective. In the new buildings, because of the increased number of floors, one cannot make contact with the ground easily, which hampers the mental and emotional connection of the people in the community. These issues can be solved by creating a common space for everyone to enjoy it. Our second author is Kevin Lynch. Lynch's famous work, The Image of the City, is the result of a 5-year study on how observers take information of the city. The aim of this theory is to understand the relation between city image and the observer. The understanding of this is that city is to be held legible through sensory cues. Its image has to be perceived by the observer. Legibility and imageability would then lead to the identification of a structure and therefore a precise identity, due to which it will be possible to analyze a city and its own elements. Every observer perceives an image of the city which they remember. For that, it is important that city is legible and imageability. And for imageability, user understands their surrounding in consistent and predictable way and form a mental image of it with 5 key elements, that is, path, to provide a channel to travel, district, for identifying character, edges, to break boundaries and linear continuity, landmark, to provide a orientation and memorable location, nodes, a strategy spot for intensive focus to and from. Our third author is Colin Rao. Colin Rao, in his book Collage City, tried to reflect on the ongoing discussion by analyzing the two radical opposite models for urban utopias that existed at that time. The book gives a critical reappraisal of contemporary theories of urban planning and design and of the role of architect-planner in an urban context. The author, rejecting the grand utopian visions of planning and design, proposes instead a collage city which can accommodate a whole range of utopias in miniature. The author talks about multiple ideas of amalgamation of distinct spaces and entities that end up syncing well with each other, creating a homogeneity of spaces from heterogeneity. Museum City, where things have lost relevance and it's necessary to make spaces that remain memorable to the user. Our fourth author is Gordon Cullen. According to Gordon Cullen, townscape is a visual art contained in the arrangement of buildings, roads, trees, nature, and urban environment that decorate the space. The townscape is one way that can be used in terms of physical visual to recognize the physical form of a city. According to author, the value should be added in the urban design of the city so that people can emotionally enjoy a good urban environment through psychological and physical sense. According to author, serial vision can be explained as the visual images captured by an observer while walking from one place to another. A human eye captures the image and breaks into pieces which gradually forms an integral image recording area for them. Typically, there will be similarities or a marker of a pieces that gives certainty to the observer that he was still in the same region. Content depends on two factors, namely the level of conformity and the level of creativity. Our fifth author is Aldo Rossi. The book, The Architecture of the City, gives a glance of architecture with respect to the city as a meaning of collective life, history, and reality, instead of a functional aspect. Rossi's urban theories explain about evolution of city, city as an artifact, primary elements as fixed activities, type over form and function, collective memory, emphasis on the collective, the public realm, continuity and permanence, concept of space, analogous city. Sketches explain the evolution of the city from the old core towards the west. Urban morphology includes all of those areas of the main road that have physical and social homogeneity. City possesses a center which is more or less complex and thus has a different characteristics. Tertiary activities are concentrated in this center. Historical elements around Main Road and District Court can be seen as masterpieces that sustained in form of space and understood with time. District Court, Kalidas, Main Road, CVS, schools, hospitals, etc. exist as fixed activity, which are primary element in city that have power to accelerate or retard urban process. Urban tends to be divided according to three principal functions: housing, fixed activities, and circulations. Our sixth author is Edmund Bacon. In his book Designing of Cities, Edmund Bacon talks about the interrelation of masses and space and awareness of space as a conscious expression. He says a form is determined by the multiplicity of decisions made by the people who live in it. Articulation of space is to produce a definite space experience in the relation to previous and anticipated space experiences. Architectural form, textures, materials, modulation of light and shade, color, all to inject a quality or spirit that articulates space. He quotes, the more density, the more walkability, more energy, more opportunities, more job. That's my starting point of a successful city. Further looking towards the site, through understanding the writing of the author, he believed that spare geometry of a building makes disregarded for the vitality of the street, providing pedestrianism and moving sidewalks, giving the street a valuable street public space. The form of the spaces were determined by the people who live in it, with context of the surrounding activities. Correlation happening from point A to point B. Our seventh author is Rasim Badran. Narrative on People and Place. Book unravels various layers of history and memory and talks about the non-Western language based on relevant religious, social, and cultural precedents. Further, the author talks about how the present seems to become the past more quickly than ever before and increasingly irrelevant. The author strongly believes building in the past with complex spatial relationships is more compelling and memorable than modern buildings. He contradicts that the individual identity is no longer connected to tradition, social interaction, or a place. Image shows the everyday activity which tells more about the true nature of the society. Below image indicates spaces and structure which have become irrelevant according to changing activities as time passes. For example, Open spaces are trapped by the commercials. Our eighth author is Rob Creer. The aim of his book, Urban Space, is to search how the traditional understanding of urban space has been lost within the modern cities. By explaining the terms of urban space and its structure, he has examined whether the concept of urban space retains some validity in contemporary town planning and on what grounds. The term urban space can be simply described as external space in town. It is seen as open, unobstructed space for movement in the open air with public, semi-public, and private zones. The spaces are the concept, which is completely or partially surrounded by buildings. Square is produced by the grouping of houses around an open space, and street is a product of that spread of a settlement once houses have been built alongside that available space. The more precise, three-dimensional quality of a building is expressed on each facade. The differentiation of scale plays an enormous role in all spatial forms, such as the effect of various architectural styles on an urban space.
To understand the site's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, analysis has been done so as to identify the issues and to provide solutions for the same. For the study, correlation and interdependency between all the primary, secondary, and tertiary activities has been studied, like hospital and fruit vendors, Nehru Garden and food stalls, Vakilwadi and Xerox shops, etc. Strengths of the overall site are: site is accessible and approachable from all directions. There is an availability of a lot of open space. Bustling commerce hub at different locations like Shalimar, Main Road, Shivaji Road, etc. generates a high revenue for the entire city. The site is well connected to the entire city via buses, rickshaw, and taxis as the main transportation hub is nearby. Weaknesses of the site are: vehicular activity is consuming more space than that of pedestrian movement. The road traffic creates a chaotic and noisy atmosphere. There are very less recreational spaces throughout the site for the public realm. There is a lack of homogeneity in the spaces. Opportunities of the overall site are: there are many identified open spaces which can be used for multifunctional activities. The open ground can be provided for all schools and colleges in the vicinity. It can provide a highlighted entrance to the open space which will give a visual access and spillover space. Threats of the site are: there is an availability of large open space, but it is dedicated to a single activity, making it an exclusive space. It has lost all the connection between Kalidas and the Shivaji Stadium because of commercials. Cultural activities have lost relevance as the nature has been changed. Talking about the schools and the Shivaji Stadium, the SWOT is as follows. Strengths are: all schools and sports related activities are in close vicinity. There is an availability of large open space. There is an important intra-city transportation hub, CBS, which is nearby. Weaknesses are: instead of having need of recreational spaces for school, there is no recreational space at all. There is lack of accessibility to the sports complexes and the open grounds. There is a lack of homogeneity in the entire area. There are no highlighted entrances to the open ground as the importance of the ground is not known. As entrances of some schools are on the main primary road, there is no spillover space which creates a lot of traffic on the road. Opportunities are: one big open space can be used for multifunctional activities. Common open ground can be provided for all schools and colleges in the vicinity, creating a homogeneous environment by retaining the character. Threats are: there is an availability of large open space, but it is dedicated to a single activity. Shivaji Stadium, Yashwantrao Vyayam Shala, Nashik Gymkhana all have an individual identity and are all exclusive spaces. Talking about the district court, entertainment amenities, and the public library, strengths are: court and related activities like lawyers' chambers, Xerox, and stationaries are in close vicinity. Library and bookstores share a close space with the court and the many schools. Intra-city transportation hub is close to all these spaces. Weaknesses are a need for refreshing and recreational spaces in court premises is needed. A lack in structural homogeneity is clearly visible. A lack in ancillary spaces is observed. Whereas the opportunities are the big open space can be used for multifunctional activities, creating a homogeneous environment through retaining the character of the buildings, clubbing court-related activities and library in one premise. Threats are loss of footfall near the library, development of unused spaces in the open area, and creation of an uninviting space for the public realm. The strengths for the hospitals are the activities on the main road drive people to these institutional buildings. The street scale is humane. Some structures stand uniquely, making them easier to identify and mark as landmarks. Weaknesses are lack of open spaces, lack of social spaces for the residents living around the area, lack of gateway or area definition treatment. The opportunities are if open space is provided with primary activities, the secondary and tertiary could be indulged with the same. Abandoned and dilapidated structures can be reused or converted to open spaces. The retainment of the character of structures is essential. Threats being the street width is not sufficient with respect to multiple activities in progression in the area. Vehicular movement is hampering the pedestrian movement on the main road, and lack of pedestrian involvement is observed. The Zilla Parishad establishes a predefined cultural relevance and a green corridor which is available as the HRD center land. Availability of large open spaces are distinctive throughout the area. Weaknesses are there is no defined land use. Internal access roads create bottlenecks due to insufficient street width. Shivaji Park does not have a defined character. Opportunities being land use can be redefined to accommodate, cultural relevance can be highlighted, sustainable open space can be developed. Threats are unplanned land use patterns and unplanned development, excessive surface parking, and clashing of vehicular and pedestrian movements. As for the Kalidas Kalamandir, the nearby public transport is beneficial for use. It has a proper parking space and is accessible by the location. Weaknesses being no eateries can be seen except the canteen around the vicinity. Shivaji Park, which is beneficial for the Kalidas, is not in use because it is on the backside of Kalidas, due to which we can see a reduced footfall. The opportunities being it can have multiple eateries, a proper use for the Shivaji Park, and it can also be converted into a public exhibition area. The threats being it lacks a lot of multi-use spaces, cultural activities which happen in the Kalidas Kala Mandir have lost relevance, and it is visible only from the front side.
The structure plan shows the policies and design intervention we have planned to cater the idea of integrating the entire area into one. The interventions are major changes to the built form and public spaces we think can be achieved to revitalize all the green spaces in the precinct and in order to allow for a better urban environment. The first intervention was the integration of built forms to revitalize them and bring functional homogeneity. Campus creation, which strengthens on the idea of creation of homogeneous environment. Plaza became the essence of public life and hence should be flexible to cater to ever-changing needs of the public. Transport nodes have been redefined, eliminating certain streets to make way for pedestrian avenues. This is done while strengthening existing network. This also creates a boundary to the open space. Reconfiguration of some streets into pedestrianing zones allows creation of one large open space in the heart of the site. Activities that promote social gathering and provide for such spaces have been planned. Entrances to the open spaces are reminiscent of the gates of Old Nashik and are to be celebrated. Multi-activity spaces that can be reconfigured as required. Creation of one culture district to bring relevance and homogeneity to the campus. creation of pause points along pedestrian paths to improve the walkability experience, reorganizing and rejuvenation of activities along street edge without hampering the pedestrian realm. Serial vision connected by a series of plazas, enriching shopping experience at Main Road. Introduction of architectural elements to promote public interaction. Celebrated entrances to highlight the importance of the open space along with reorganizing roadside eateries, linking multiple spaces emphasizing on pedestrian movement over mobility. Main Road has been pedestrianized completely to promote social interaction and boost business opportunities. Introduction of hotel at an important junction to bank on the opportunities created by open spaces in the city and its proximity to the river. Nodal junction that themselves serves as swells of pedestrian activities. Landmark creation to the bank on the idea of memory associated with the space. These are some of the micro-level strategies and intervention which we plan to promote and enrich pedestrian experience. These strategies were incorporated and taken further for interventions in the proposal of master plan.
Presenting our proposed master plan. The highlighted urban built masses have been introduced by merging, relocating, or intervening new urban built forms. Buildings have been restricted to 80 meters from street edge on main streets and 50 meters on secondary streets to prevent urban encroachment in the central open space. To achieve that, a tram service track has been introduced, which connects all the nodes within that space. The central open space serves the entire site, acting as a spillover for all activities happening around. The nodes as used as an entrance to the open space with introducing various activities at the node. All the nodes are within 5-minute walking distances of one another, and the extreme edges of the sites are within 15 minutes of walking distance. This is the proposed master plan in relation with the existing that shows the difference of character moving from mobility oriented system to accessibility oriented system. By considering all the strategies and analysis, we came up with these 22 proposals for the site. Comparing the characteristics of the proposed urban sprawl with the existing situation. The proposed figure and ground mapping shows the expanse of the urban build forms. The build forms have been moved to the fringe of the streets and densified, creating a large open space. The proposed knowledge plan shows the extent by which the urban space has been expanded and increased the available public realm. In the existing mapping, there is a non-uniform distribution of commercial, recreational, and institutional buildings, and in proposed plan, we have tried to achieve uniform distribution of these activities. In proposed mapping, building heights have been controlled around the site to maintain the original characteristics of the place. This ensures that built mass remains humane in scale and does not overpower to open spaces, but rather cohabits with it.
Demonstration Area 1 is an accumulation of various important activities which serve on an individual street, area, and the city level. The Old Mumbai-Agra Highway is a major transit street which passes through the now titled Heritage District. The area houses institutional buildings like the Girls' High School, Collector's Office, and the District Court. All of this is in close vicinity to the central large open green core. Good morning, everyone. The following suggestive intervention lies on the northern side of the site. The focus lies on the current court premise and the possible upcoming of the same. The district court and the collector's office were established in the year 1884. The long reign of the structures has resulted in the current heritage district formation. The focus throughout this suggestive design intervention was to create a homogeneous space which is comfortable for the user and a space which creates a new identity for the entire city. The two existing structures, Zillanale and the Collector's Office, become the influential structures for the entire suggestive makeover. Various strategies were used to strengthen the image of the heritage influence, visibility, and accessibility. Establishing a focal point, connecting various precincts together, and adding a foreground for enough spillover were catered to. Along with this, the homogeneous characteristics of the British era structures was imprinted on the proposals. Existing premise came with haphazard road connections and brick buildings made without any contextual reasoning. Hence, these buildings are suggested to be eliminated and formation of a new premise, inclusive of all the court-related primary and secondary activities, in a series of structures in the same vicinity is proposed. Keeping similar activities close is implemented. In the existing site, the heritage structures were hiding behind trees and were not visible at all. This has been undone and the focus has been re-established on the structures. The suggestive intervention started with restructuring and replacing various existing structures, which were later combined in a humongous block. This did not create a very human scale. Hence, functions were further broken down into different buildings. The suggestive plan shows the proposed buildings in the site and how a central street is suggested. This increases ease and accessibility and gives effective connectivity. Safe pedestrian ways and enjoyable sitting spaces have been proposed, where the public can feel at ease and free to perform activities like eating, sitting, or even lying, all in accordance to the Indian context. The connection between the plaza and the district court allows maximum pedestrian exchange. The plaza houses secondary activities like eateries, relaxing area, and even a library for the visitors of the court. A suggestion of clubbing the district court, CID office, and Talati on a single podium with still parking has been made. This will keep administration activities close by, and addition of notary and Xerox shops in the building will allow an ease of function for all precincts. On the northern part of the site, the lawyer's chambers, bank, and the canteen are introduced, which will support the district court activities. All the proposed buildings shall resemble the heritage structures, displaying round arches, stone masonry, and sloping roofs. The new court complex is to be the highlight and focal point of the new precinct. Along with the district court, CID office, and Talati office are on the same podium. This integrates similar functions and increases efficiency and interdependency of the various activities. The lawyer's chambers, bank, and the canteen are on the northern side of the site. These secondary activities not only serve the court staff but also the hundreds of people who visit the court every day. The existing elevation of the premise from the street only focuses on the many trees hiding the heritage structures. Multiple undefined entries are observed and the different style of buildings can be distinctly seen. In the proposal, one can observe the dominance of the new similar character structures behind the heritage structures. The premise now creates a focal point for viewers and the similar character in the structure is seen, which instantly indicates similar functions of the buildings. The images show the interrelation of the premise with the plaza in front. The positioning of the structures has created a focus on the area. The homogeneity in the complex makes it stand out from the rest of the site. The central street indicates the ease of connections and accessibility by everyone who uses the campus. Visible connectivity has also been prioritized while planning the area. The image showcases the grandeur of the space and shows how the arches and pediment denotes the British era style. Use of the spillover space has been highlighted. Various political or civic events can take place in the suggested area. To conclude, the homogeneity of the entire precinct has been tried to be retained and focus has been given on the British era structure and also on retaining a similar character on the suggested structures. Along with shaded pathways and spaces for the public to relax, a central street throughout the vicinity has been highlighted. The suggestive interventions are not only envisioned to have a dialogue between themselves, but also with the adjoining plaza and the educational institutes. The plaza is to become the spillover and an extension for the court premise. Thank you.
Site is located on Old Agra Road connected to District Court premises. It is forming center attraction point between CBS and Meher Signal. Around site premises there is administrative area, institutional educational area, transportation hub and commercial complex. Old Agra Road connects various points including CBS, all administrative area and commercial complexes. The premises consist of heritage structure which reflects colonial architecture. The main aim is to retain heritage structure and bring homogeneity in the premises, creating visual connection and development of foreground for structure that will act as a welcoming space and pause point for multiple activities. Strategies derived for this intervention is to provide space for performing multiple activities that will engage public, creating pause point for pedestrians while walking from point A to point B where they can rest, designing entrance to open space as plaza that will make it more welcoming, bringing homogeneity in premises by reflecting character of colonial architecture in new buildings, connecting two edges without disturbing vehicular movement, accessibility over mobility and barrier-free visual connection with all structure in vicinity. Design evolution. These are four ideas worked out while designing process from which option 4 is taken further for design process. In this option, vehicular movement is proposed plus 1.8 meter from ground level and pedestrian is proposed minus 1.8 level from ground level. Thus, 3.6 meter clear height gap is formed which will act as active connection between two spaces. It is also helping in implementing other design strategies which is worked further. In existing scenario, trees are forming boundaries between activity on the street and surrounding structure. Spillover of activity can be observed on the footpath and adjoining road which is disturbing vehicular as well as pedestrian movement. No existing pause point or a focal point can be seen on this axis. Thus, program aims to propose a pause point for the pedestrian and to redefine boundaries to develop a visual connection and creating space to allow multiple activities. Series of plazas are proposed at different levels to develop a memorial transition space. This will act as a landmark and help in attracting various activity. The intervention of plaza will create foreground space for administrative building. This will act as a welcoming space. Two plazas will be forming a connection between two different edges without disturbing vehicular movement. This will create easy accessibility between activities on adjoining edge and also accommodate changing needs during festival and events. Library is relocated minus 1.8 meter down from ground level in court premises plaza. It includes museum, book display area, shops and various space for performing multiple activities. Relocating library in this zone will be beneficial for educational and administrative premises. Public involvement will increase and this will add to its relevance. Relocating statues in the plazas will act as a landmark and focal point. Skylight is provided to take in natural light. This will supply ample amount of natural light underground which will act as a key element for library. These are sections from premises plaza. Section A shows proposed skylight. Colonial character of a building can be seen in elevation. Section BB shows a series of plaza at different levels with roof accessibility. Section CC- shows plaza at different levels holding different activities. Library and museum block is placed minus 2.7 meter from ground level and 0.9 level is raised from ground level, so it gets clear height of 3.6 meter. Structure is at minus level, so visual connectivity is maintained. Roof of library is activated as plaza and natural light for the spaces below is taken through towers which is also becoming landmark for above level plaza. Section DD- is from plaza in front of library block which is having Hutatma Smarak statue which has been relocated to celebrate its existence. This plaza is at minus 1.8 meter level from ground and showing steps leading towards library arcade corridor which is minus 0.9 meter from this level. These are sections from plaza located between two schools, showing Shivaji Maharaj statue which is relocated to celebrate its existence and make it attraction point. It will act as a landmark for this plaza. Spaces seen in front of statue will cater to spillover during festival. Multipurpose spaces for events gathering can be seen in section. There is mural wall in background which will act as backdrop for stage can be seen in section GG-. Food stalls and shaded space for resting and spending time can be seen in section EE- and FF-. These are existing and proposed elevation of both the plazas. Top two elevation are of plaza from court premises that show how existing condition was and how connectivity with structure is achieved along with creating serial vision. Bottom two elevation are from plaza in school premises. Existing elevation is showing visual barrier and proposal in next elevation shows plaza connection with open space which is welcoming and connecting. These are some views from both the plazas. These are views of plazas at different levels. This is plaza in front of library that holds landmark. Library reflects homogeneity with surrounding structures. This is plaza at lower level that includes shops and resting spaces. View from school premises plaza. This is view from library plaza showing arcaded corridor in front of library. These are guidelines set for designing of plazas. It mentions intentions for this proposal and guidelines to be followed. This space should be activated as public space. Library block ground coverage should be 12% along with all shops and corridors. Providing natural light for this space through interventions which will act as a landmark. Providing safe pedestrian connectivity with all spaces without disturbing busy vehicular movement. Creating landmark to celebrate its existence. Proposed build form must be reflecting homogeneity with surrounding.
Restructuring of educational institutions and retaining heritage. The site is located right beside the central open space on Old Agra Road. On the street side, we have the district court, and on the south side, we have multimodal transport hub. Educational institutions play very important role in cities' formation. The existing schools are located close to each other along with other major institutional buildings which forms a heritage district. Considering its importance and student safety, the existing schools and school-related activities in the whole site are brought together as it will create new opportunities for schools which are now on the verge to close down, will retain the building character of the heritage structures, will create a safe vehicular free environment for the students, and will create a new identity for the schools. As the aim talks about the restructuring of the educational institutions, following strategies are derived. First, providing permeable building edges to increase visual connectivity. Second, creating a vehicular free movement for the students by giving accessibility over mobility. Third, creating connection with the open space so as to direct students to enter the school from the pedestrian open space instead of directly from the main street, which will add to their safety. Fourth, retaining the building character and bring structural and functional homogeneity. In the existing scenario, trees and the structures are forming boundaries between the open ground and the street, as well as the existing buildings are showing their back to the open space. Some structures have lost their relevance, while some structures are dilapidated and unnecessarily creating visual barrier. This program aims to create a visual connection between the street and the open space. This stretch is divided in two parts, namely as Part A and Part B. Part A contains the Unified One School and Part B contains Shikshan Khate Karyalaya, Government High School and the Girls Hostel. In between, there is a pedestrian plaza which connects two edges of the open space. These are some diagrams evolved of different forms of the school. These forms are creating envelopes towards open spaces and the main street and forming welcoming spaces. The forms are also creating different open spaces and ground for the students. The solid grey hash denotes the built space, while the dotted part shows the semi-open space so as to form connection between the two spaces. Out of these options, one option is detailed out. This form is creating an envelope towards the open space intentionally to welcome students from the open space, which will lead to their transition through the safer environment than from the main street. The arcade on the ground floor will visually connect the open space and the street, and it will also create a multi-purpose space for the students to carry out their different activities. Also, the passage given on the inner side forms the interconnection between the three school buildings. The section shows the covered pathway, interdependence and visual connection between the open space and the school. Also, the trees are taller than the average human height so as it won't create any obstruction in visual connectivity. This is the side elevation of the school from the plaza. These are some diagrams evolved of different forms of Part B, where Shikshan Khate Karyalaya and the girls' hostel are added to the existing government girls' high school. The corridor is kept common for all the three spaces, which will act as a connector between them. Out of these options, one option is detailed out. This is the detailed plan of three combined activities, namely as Government High School, Shikshan Khate Karyalaya and Girls Hostel, connected with the passage. The structure is physically and visually connected with the central open space. This section is showing the connection of the school with the pedestrian street and the open space. Spikes are given on the compound wall so as it will not create the visual barrier, but it will create the physical barrier for the school. These are some waves showing interrelation between the different institutional buildings, the uniformity between the heritage buildings, and the homogeneity between the buildings. The weave shows connection of the structure with the ground and the open space. These are the guidelines for the given proposal. The area of Part A is 15,000 square meters and the maximum ground coverage area is 24%. These are the guidelines for the given proposal. The area of Part B is 10,390 square meters and the maximum ground coverage is 19%. Thank you.
Public transportation is an important contributing factor to urban sustainability. Effective transportation networks that incorporates public transit helps cities per capita carbon footprint. That makes city more livable by easing commute and transportation that needs increasing accessibility. But the mere presence of public transportation, the number of buses available, does not paint a complete picture. There are five principles of sustainability for municipal transportation: accessibility, affordability, connectivity, holistic transportation, and land use planning. Multimodal transportational hub. Transport hubs plays a key role in their community as a place to gather, pass through, arrive, and depart. The integrated urban places designed to bring people, activities, building, and public spaces together with easy walking and cycling connection between them, and near excellent transit service to the rest of the city. It means exclusive access for all to local and citywide opportunities and resources by the most efficient and helpful combination of mobility modes at the lowest financial and environmental cost. Our aim was to create a compact, mixed-use development within walking distance of high-capacity rapid transit, also pedestrian-oriented built form and land use characteristics that makes it convenient and safe walk, cycle, and public transport. This is the design evolution of multimodal transportational hub. Here we have proposed metro station, city bus stop, and cycle plaza. The metro line is unidirectional.
For the city bus route, it is the same from MG Road towards Ashoksthan. In the opposite of Transport Hub, we have introduced Cycle Plaza to make the connectivity as smooth as possible. The strategy was to create a dense network of walking and cycling routes, results in short, varied and direct connection that improves access to goods, services and public transport. Here is the detailed plan and elevation of metro bus stop for one-side docking. The platform is large enough for two metro buses to arrive and depart. The project has been undertaken with the aim of enabling people to use eco-friendly ways to traveling to their destination and thus making Nashik a cycle-friendly city. The transport hub is connected to Cycle Plaza so that people can use cycles to reach their workplaces. In the plaza, there are cycle booths. The cycles are electrical and this is the charging station for them. We also have introduced sitting spaces in between them. The strategy is to create cycle-friendly city and rapid transit lines, as Nashik Smart City has participated in India Cycles for a Change challenge. In this view, you can see the flow of traffic and pedestrian activities. The blue arrow shows the activity of metro bus and the red arrow shows the activity of city bus. The purple arrow shows the pedestrian flow from bus stop to cycle plaza. This is the view of metro station and bus stop for local city buses. And this is the view of Cycle Plaza as we can see the open sitting and the charging stations. A suggestion of clubbing the metro station, bus stop and cycle plaza together is to make transport easily available for everyone. The multimodal transit hub is a transport node that interconnects multiple modes of transportation and constantly improves the efficiency and speed of movement. The multimodal transit hub unites seamless passenger transfer as well as combines it with the passenger-based activities. It is the spine of the city that serves the most crucial purpose of transportation, becoming an efficient transport system. A transit hub also caters to seamless mobility and an environment for easy flow between public transport and public space to uplift the economic scenario while also creating a social identity for the city. It is not just a starting or ending point of a journey. The multimodal transit hub also serves as a node for the community that surrounds and resides around the transit hub.
Good morning everyone. Coming to the central open space. This is the location of central open space in a master plan. It is one of the important design intervention as it stitches all adjacent design intervention to each other. To respond to the demand of expansion in rapidly growing urban space, there was a need of enormous open space. The logic between its central location is that it serves as a binding space for all of its neighborhood interventions. The design of the project will involve preparing a three-dimensional urban design master plan with the strategy of street network and the urban block, public open spaces, public amenities, and infrastructure. Integration of public transport system which will enhance last mile connectivity. The strategy of limiting the urban build form in the open space is achieved by designing a loop of toy rail which also ensure that adjoining areas are well connected. Talking about the existing scenario, there is a trapped open space in between the commercial area which we are trying to open up and amalgamate all activities which are on the edge. There are some school on the edge which has lack of open space for the children. There is a Shivaji Road with the vehicular movement and commercial intersection which bisecting the large open space. We have proposed activities are in such a way that it will help the surrounding structure. The activities are children play park, farming area for the children, botanic garden, centrally located water body, waterfront amphitheater, amusement park, space for the senior citizen, various activities on the pedestrian path, multipurpose ground, and the toy rail around the open space. These are some design strategies. We have proposed a interdependency of activity with the structure. The playground with the different activities like open ground, kids play area, farming area, and the space for senior citizen with the green gym are located near the school premise and the residential area with the shortest distance and the easy access. The central green space is a core element that will tie all neighborhoods together, and all loop road ensure that all parcels are well connected. The pedestrian spine goes around the loop road, which promotes the cycling and helps with the last mile connectivity to all parcel of the open space. We have proposed a toy rail around the open space which connects the various nodes. We are trying to create a journey which gives an experience and memories of each and every activity in one continuous loop. There is a water body which will invite more people at the central location and make the junction more lively. We have designed a pedestrian path connecting two main nodes, which is multimodal transport node and the Shalimar node. We are trying to create a continuous journey which will memorable for the people. To achieve this, there are different activities like dense forest walk, railway crossing, covered sitting space, art and culture display area, and the entry to the amusement park. These are different design options which we are evolved from the initial stage to suggestive proposal. In option 1, only the swale nodes were connected with the pedestrian walkway which had a long travel from point A to point B. In option 2, a toy rail loop was introduced and pedestrian pathway along the toy rail. In option 3, later in the stage, the contours were created in a form of man-made pond and amphitheater, which altogether create a recreational space right in the center. The pond also served to the water needs of farming activities and botanic garden, which was later introduced in the design. Toy rail is proposed to connect all nodes and will be used for feasible access from one point to the other. And alongside the toy rail, a pedestrian spine goes along the loop which promotes cycle and e-cycle that help the last mile connectivity to all space in open space. These are the four different entrance points which helps to regulate the central open space. The activities provided on the node points in and along the open space will be the key to determine how successful the proposal will be in bringing the people together. Apart from the central open space, these node points ensure that people stay connected.
Water is the element of attraction in our central open space. Considering its features, appearances, and characteristics, water leads to an improved sense of well-being, and by being in contact with water can immediately induce a meditative state which makes humans happier, healthier, and calmer. With the help of existing contours and topography of land, the proposed location of the water body was a possible intervention. Here, in the longitudinal proposed section AA, we can see how the contoured land is catered with the proposal of water body and amphitheater, and in horizontal proposed section BB, it is observed that all the build forms are shifted to peripheral edges of the open space, which in resultant gets a humongous open space in city's civic center, which is aptly missing in the existing scenario. These are few of the detailed sections of how the interventions are acting along the different edges. An orthographic view of our overall master plan which highlights all the proposed interventions alongside the existing building marked with transparency. We can distinctly observe that our aim to achieve the 30% urban footprint and 70% open space is achieved here. Some other views of the central open space, where View 1 is the overall master 3D, View 2 is of the water body, View 3 is the central open ground for sports and cultural activities, and View 4 is the view for botanical garden. These are the guidelines for the design proposals. Number 1. The intervention should have maximum concentration on open spaces. Number 2. Water body should be proposed to enhance recreational spaces. Number 3. Amusement park should be incorporated as an attraction point in the central open space. Number 4. Amphitheater for 800 capacity in order to host the city events. Number 5. Proper play park for infants should be designed in consideration with their anthropometry.
The Zone 2 demonstration area includes an entrance plaza to the open space through the primary roads. It even includes the art and cultural district with multifunctional exhibition area which connect to the open space. On the left side, that is the master plan, and on the right side, showing the location of my site. Renewal of Street Edge Part A. The project focuses on redesigning street elements. Every street has its own character according to its surrounding edges. The project includes interconnected build form and spaces of three roads, which is GPO Road, Jilla Parishad Road, and Old Agra Road. The street has intersection of heavy vehicles, pedestrians, cycles, hawkers, and vendors. Coming to design evolution of street edge. The strategy was to have a designated pathway for pedestrians which it needs to be connected with every plot parcels, and to provide space for vendors and hawkers with pedestrian activity, so that it will increase the interdependency on street. Also, streets should be visually connected with surrounding activities. In design option 1, the vendors and hawkers placed on one side for greater carriageway. In option 2, created compound wall as a low height seating. In proposed design, the edges are made porous, which increases the visual and physical connectivity. It is designed with planters and inbuilt seatings. In this GPO road, the strategy was to give a proper spillover space for the shops so that the display area of shop won't hamper on the street. Also, by relocating the existing hawker in interactive pocket, so they will get more exposure and it will create small eatery space there. On the node, the strategy was to have a large space to accommodate crowd and redesigned three temples for small gathering activity throughout the site. On the Zilla Parishad Road, there was more vending activity because of government building. So, to incorporate them, porous module has given, which will be multi-utility area for users. The stretch has dense existing trees and new trees which will make street more usable. This old Agra road occupies residential and commercial land use, so the continuous pathway which follows through series of sitters will create pause points which is easily accessible. Cycle track acting as a buffer between footpath and carriageway. Also, we have widened the footpath for to make the street pedestrian friendly. In section AA, you can see the activity pocket with multi-utility area, and to restrict vehicle, footpaths are raised with street element like bollards. In section BB and section CC, showing temple acting as a worshipping plus gathering space while it is visible from all sides of node. These are some 3D views from various point of sight. As in this, you can see the multi-utility space for hawkers with informal seating under the natural shade. This is how community area will be used with pre-existing temple. These are some guidelines which has been incorporated in design. By having dedicated space for each activity, the congestion problem will solve. Overall, making the street user-friendly and pedestrian-friendly by experiencing and interacting with surroundings. Thank you.
Redefining the identity of Thakkar Bazaar node. Thakkar Bazaar node is the busiest node which connects the old and new development of Nashik. The aim is to give the junction an identity which will invite people. The node has important structures such as Pinnacle Mall, Holy Cross Church, Bharat Petroleum and HP Petrol Pump, Asta Kriti Care Hospital and Talk of the Town Hotel. The strategies applied to the nodes are to give continuous pedestrian pathway all over node, swelling of nodes provided to cater the crowd at the junction which also acts as a pause points, to have connection of built mass and pedestrian pathways, to cater the buffer space between church and street, to create multipurpose spillover space for church, to give proper access to fuel station, to provide a space for vendors in front of the hospital, which creates interdependency. The proposed activities are swelling of nodes, foreground to the church which act as a open space for church premise, drop-off point to the Pinnacle Mall which will cater the existing traffic, proper access to the fuel station, buffer space between church and the street, proper arrangement for vendors sitting in front of Astakriti Care Hospital and Talk of the Town Hotel. In existing scenario, there is no connectivity between Pinnacle Mall and street. The existing 1.8 meters high boundary wall creates physical and visual barrier between mall and street. A person standing on a footpath cannot access to the mall. To have a solution, the series of steps have been provided which connects pedestrian pathway and mall. On the plinth level, the sittings are provided which acts as an outdoor space for mall, also acts as a overlooking area towards nodes and street. Drop-off point is provided for Pinnacle Mall as in existing scenario there was no drop-off point provided which results into a traffic jam on the street. The defined entry and exit is proposed to both the petrol pump as in existing condition it was missing. Fruit vendor sits in front of the Astakriti Care Hospital. Proper place is allotted them. Holy Cross Church and street is visually connected by providing spillover space which also acts as a foreground for the church. Buffer space is intervened between the church and street to cater the noise. Also, sittings are provided along with the buffer space which makes it more interactive. The proposed bell tower creates identity to the node and itself creates landmark. Section AA shows foreground to the church and bell tower is creating an identity and landmark to the node. Section BB shows the overlooking area of Pinnacle Mall creating visual connection. Bollards are provided to give a sense of security to pedestrian pathways. Section CC shows the nodal junction and proper access to the petrol pumps. These are some 3D views of the interventions. These are some of the guidelines which has been incorporated in design. By using all of these, the redefining of the Thakkar Bazaar node is possible. Thank you.
Hello everyone. So I will be talking about the Khadkai Street. The Khadkai Street is a busy street with dense vehicular movement. Also, the Khadkai Street is a further continuation with the ZP Road and the GPO Road. Many cities have initiated to work on redesigning the street. A street design caters to the needs of all users and activities throughout equitable allocation of road spaces. Complete Street provides a safe and inclusive environment that supports users of all age groups. The objective of this intervention on Khadkari Road is to provide pedestrian-friendly pathways and redesigning the street edge. Considering the existing scenario of the street and the shops share the same level on the road. Also, absence of disciplined parking and rickshaws and the vehicles. Also, there are no designated frontage to the shops and no vehicular free pedestrian pathways. A complete street is designed to suit the local context, factoring in local street activities, patterns of pedestrian movement, and nearby land use and the needs of the people. Here we have tried to propose a pedestrian-friendly pathway, also informal sittings at various points, with providing of zebra crossings, speed breakers, and a designated rickshaw stand. Here the strategy was to give a proper spillover space so that the display area of the shop won't hamper the street. Also, The street should have a uniform carriage width to streamline motor vehicular flow and reduce congestion. Footpath width can be varied. The presence of street furniture invites people on the street and make the street lively by providing opportunities for social interactions. So here we can see how the footpaths are raised to prohibit vehicular entry and the vehicular parking. The seatings have been placed on the edge of the footpath facing the shops. So these are few of the 3D views of our interventions. We can see how the footpath is encouraging people to make most of the pedestrian walkway. Also, a series of seating is provided on the edges of the road. In the pedestrian footpath, bollards are used to give a sense of security and boundary, also keeping it porous and visually connected with the street and the surroundings. So here are few of the guidelines given for the given proposal. The Khadkari street length 0.23 km with the width of 12 meter. So here we have proposed a footpath which is 0.3 meters height and minimum width of the footpath is 2.5 to which varies from 2.5 to 3 meters. Main intention here is to make the street more pedestrian friendly as there is no designated pedestrian area. Seatings at various intervals have provided to promote interaction and connectivity, also to create pause points. Bollards are placed at the edge of the pedestrian pathways. Separates the pedestrian pathway from the street, also maintains a visual connection as well as keeps the security for the pedestrian pathway. The bollards have minimum height of 0.5 meters. Also, a designated rickshaw stand is proposed with a capacity of 5 rickshaws.
The restructuring of Art and Cultural District. The site is located to the south of the open space at the northern edge of the GPO road. Alongside the site, we have the exhibition area towards the north, which further expands into the open space. Together with the exhibition space, this creates a realm of highly interrelated activities. The restructuring of Art and Cultural District. The brief focuses on the idea of a creative central space housing all cultural activities. This area also functions as a buffer space to provide thoroughfare between the street edge and the open space. The functions here are an amalgamation of these typologies in the precinct. This slide shows the structures that have been relocated into the campus to create one unit. Earlier, the entire area was disassembled and scattered. Pre-existing Kalidas Kalamandir, Parshuram Sai Khedkar Natyagruha, Mahatma Phule Kala Dalan have lost their relevance and importance and have no homogeneity in terms of the structure. The strategy was to integrate all these areas into one campus, improving their relevance as well as their interdependence. The site provides an indirect and direct thoroughfare to the Central Park from within the campus. The strategies involved in making the design were introduction of a plaza that itself acts as a spillover space for the cultural activities, porous edges that allow free movement throughout the site, and separate planes for various activities indicating change in typology. The project intends to integrate cultural buildings in the precinct into one district. It integrates commercial and cultural activities. Interdependency between the typology creates a space that is independent on each other. The need to revitalize them stems from the deep-rooted history of Nasik and theatre and art. In order to revitalize both of them, along with Parshuram Sai Khedkar Natyagruha, they have been integrated into one campus to give them homogeneity and brought closer to the edge of the street to bring them into prominence. Commercials become an aspect of revenue generation for these cultural buildings. These are the design options for the cultural district. The first evolution of the form, although did provide large open spaces, it took away softscapes and added to the hardscapes, which was not suitable, and hence was rejected. It also occupied a larger area on ground. The second variation solves this issue by moving the auditoriums to the ends of the site and creating a realm in between for both public and commercial activities. making them interdependent. Also, vertically stacking the commercial helps reduce the footprint. Hence, the second variation was selected. The ideation for the build form allows for creation of plazas that extend naturally into one common space. Overhangs from the structures above allows for variation in the volume, making the space more humane. Although the built mass is spread over the entire length of the plot, breaks and punctures are introduced to connect the street edge to the open space, physically and visually. The auditoriums open up to the main plaza naturally and thus act as a spillover space. A kund at the rear becomes a level becomes a connection between two levels and also acts as a large space for multiple activities. The structure above replicates the commercial while also provides overhangs for the plaza below. The underground level parking provides for parking services for this structure and also other spaces in the vicinity to reduce the surface level parking. These are the guidelines for the project. The site is restricted to 60 meters from the street edges, allowing to limit built mass within the green area above. The built mass is capped at G+3 to avoid overpowering the surrounding skyline. Thoroughfare between the two edges of the site is necessary to provide a physical and visual link. This is a view of the main plaza. This main plaza extends naturally from the auditoriums outside. This shows the physical and the visual connectivity between the two ends of the site, opening up into the open space. This is a view of the kund that houses multiple activities. This also leads on to the open space via the exhibition areas. Thank you.
The site is a multi-activity space with an exhibition area along with an art and cultural district. The site is located right below to the open space near to the art and cultural district. The design intent was to create an exhibition space that is linked with art and cultural district and also used for multi-activity space. Talking about multi-activity space along with art and cultural district. The aim of this intervention is to create a multi-activity space along with city-level exhibition area in close vicinity to the cultural district. A connectivity between the exhibition space and cultural district has been established to ease the accessibility and interdependency between the two. The multi-use activity space aims to attract various age groups and to invite conversation amongst all users. The existing scenario houses a cultural campus but lack of multi-purpose use. Therefore, in the suggestive brief, cultural activities are clubbed together and an open exhibition space with a multi-activity space has been established. The design started involving with the concept of enhancing the physical and visual connection between the exhibition space and the installation area. The second concept suggested a combination of multi-purpose space and the installation. The third concept was create the two suggested space with the sculpture garden. The final proposal resulted to have a ceremonial entrance from cultural hub along with sculpture garden to invite people to the exhibition space and create memories, whereas the display area near the central open space would impact information about art exhibition and the rich culture of the city. Connection in grouping is established to convey the homogeneity of the cultural districts. This suggestive intervention include a city-level exhibition space, multi-activity space to attend concerts, workshops or cultural gatherings, etc., and the sculpture garden which is connected with the cultural district and the admin block along with conference hall. Existing section, we can clearly identify the cultural campus, but there is no one open space that can be utilized by the public realm. In the proposed section, we can see the multi-activity space with exhibition space and the sculpture garden. Here are some views which shows how proposed strategy will work. Enhancing the physical and visual connection between all spaces. Ceremonial entrance from the cultural district along with sculpture garden. These are the guidelines for the given proposal. The site is allowing to limited build mass for maintaining the multi-activity open space. The building is linked with cultural district, which is the extension of the art and cultural section. The open space will be used for many activities. If the space used for only one activity, then the value of the space.
Good morning. The site is located at Shalimar Node and is an entrance to the central open space. The design intent was to use the node as a multifunctional space. The design started off by analyzing and illustrating the existing street elements, pedestrian movement, vendors, and public transport. Edges and nodes are the most essential parts of the streets, but in most cases they do not interact with the streets and their associated environment. They create activities and economies on the streets, moreover adding life to streets. Primarily, the project focuses on integration of activities on nodes and edges and demarcating the activities within different spaces while maintaining a flow of pedestrian and vehicular movement. In the existing scenario, there are multiple activities happening on the street edge. There are vendors, taxi stand, auto rickshaw stand, and bus stop, which creates an utter chaos in vehicular and pedestrian movement. The fruit vendors occupy the edge of the hospital and have their spillover on the carriageway as they are interdependent on each other. So, to cater these issues, some strategies were evolved, like the edges should be made permeable, which increases the flexibility and connectivity, providing walkable friendly pedestrian street, swelling and connection of nodes. The node junction should be made permeable, which increases free flow of movement. Considering these strategies, the proposal was to have an entrance plaza to the central open space and providing vending area for the existing fruit vendors at the node. For having walkable friendly pedestrian edges, the elements bus stop, taxi stand and auto rickshaw stand are segregated with reducing the carriageway. The design started evolving with the concept of enhancing the physical and visual connection to the open space by an entrance plaza with retaining the statue in the center and organize the vendors to accommodate dedicated spaces for vending activity without interrupting the vehicular and pedestrian circulation. The second concept was to have modules of different character within the plaza, giving vitality to the entrance. The third concept was to have common raised platform and green sitting islands which creates pause points. The final proposal allured to have a ceremonial entrance which leads to the open space by meandering through the vending area. The space is designed in such a way that if vendors are not occupying the spaces, it can still act as a sitting space. For the raised platform, the strategy was to have diagonal grid as it increases directionality. To have high visual connection, inverted umbrellas are used at different heights. In the existing sections, we can see how the nodes and edges are not interacting with the street, and in proposed section, the interaction of the associated environment is achieved by trying and introducing multiple activities which add life to the street and nodes. The visual shows the ceremonial entrance to the open space with vending areas where people meander through it. This graphic overlooks the entrance plaza by visually and physically connecting the plaza with the street. The graphic shows the raised platforms and sitting islands which creates pause points, and variation in inverted umbrella increases the visual connection and also helps collect water during rainy season. These are the guidelines for the given proposal. The area is 3000 square meters and the maximum ground coverage is 15%. The node acts as an entry into the open space where the statue will be retained so as to create landmark. Street vending is the common activity in this neighborhood, which hampers vehicular and pedestrian movement, and hence vending activity is given with the entrance. The modules are designed in such a way that if the vendors are not occupying the space, it can still function as a seating space. To restrict the vending activity, hard edges are provided. The inverted umbrellas with different heights give high visual connectivity and helps collect water, which will be economically sustainable for the landscape of the open space. By incorporating all the strategies, I have tried to achieve an interactive street edge and node. Thank you.
The demonstration area for Zone 3 includes an entrance plaza and sports complex connecting to the open space with a major commercial complex on Mahatma Gandhi Road. Entrance plaza and food court for open space. The site is located in the center at the fringe of old and the new development of city. Connecting both the development with interdependent activities help to boost the urban space. A public plaza is a community amenity that serves a variety of users. It acts as a lobby space to connect streetscape to the open space. Here, the main aim of the project is to revamp the space and boost the pedestrianized activities, which will open up for visual and physical access. As Nehru Garden being a focal point due to its strategic location and political significance in existing scenario, it acts as a landmark for the surrounding vicinity. To create the interrelation, the project also merged the Nehru Garden vicinity into the proposed open space and create a big homogeneous space, which will act as an highlighted entrance for the surrounding amenities like sports complex, Shalimar commercial hub, and open space. Looking upon the existing diverse set of activities like food kiosks, hawkers, vendors, shops, vehicular and pedestrian movement, it provides flexible enough spaces to accommodate pedestrians. Clubbing those activities with an ancillary activity or food court creates an interdependency between them. Proposing interactive spaces in correlation with food court will enhance the quality of public space, which will improve the social interaction and experience of the people. Design evolution for entrance plaza and food court talks about the various positioning of the activities with the relation to each other. It started with designing pedestrian access to orient visitors in a particular direction. Retaining political significance from the statue gave the character to the vicinity. Similarly, second option deals with soft and hard landscape, which create an interactive pockets in between and help for image mapping. The final outcome evolved with the various effective possibilities like curved entrance pavilion with a public plaza ahead inviting people inside, various positioning of covered seating spaces for food courts allows maximum interactive points. These modules got evolved from the typical idea of sitting below the tree. Food stall, vendors, hawkers are placed at various locations having interdependency with each other. Existing section shows restricted entrance to the Nehru Garden vicinity with limited visual and physical connection. Proposed section talks about free-flowing pedestrian movements and restricted vehicular movements. It also shows variation in level difference of hard and soft scape and covered pedestrian movements. In order to ensure a proper transition, generating design guidelines help to provide people with new, secure, and efficient resources. Here, for this project, the guidelines are to build 10% of total proposed area, creating a buffer of trees between road and entrance plaza by retaining existing trees of the vicinity, providing build form for multiple use of activity according to the time to generate the kinetics of urban space, clubbing Nehru Garden Precinct to form homogeneity and providing a platform for existing activities, with retaining political significance of Nehru Garden through statues. proposing two-way vehicular circulation by increasing the width of road to 18 meters. The level difference will help to restrict the vehicular movement from the road, which will also define the hardscape and softscape to covered pedestrian movements. Various positioning of covered seating spaces allow maximum interactive points, which got evolved from typical idea of sitting below the tree. Designing a highlighted entrance to create a focal point will redirect the pedestrian flow inwards. The following image shows the sense of direction towards the open space through pavilion and pergola. Here, the food plaza is acting as a median between the green court and the street edge. The following images talks about the elements used in urbanism to enhance the public realm. The graphic shows the street edge leading to the plaza by retaining statues, which further connects the people with various activities to the open space.
Good morning. The following is a suggestive design intervention. The site is located on the western edge of Tilak Road. The existing buildings which have been addressed are of two buildings of Yashwant Vyamshala, Nashik Gymkhana, Pashuram Saikedkar Natya Mandir, Shivaji Stadium and Shivaji Ground. The aim was to provide all the activities of these buildings under one space. This particular intervention is codependent on the adjoining spaces such as Food Plaza, Red Cross Signal Node, and the central open space. The objective of this particular intervention was to provide a single space for sports and fitness activities. This would form a connection between public realm and the open space. The idea was generated because of different structures having different sports activities were scattered in the vicinity. So this would reduce the footprint and would contribute the excess space to the central open space. This would also have a visual as well as physical connection with the central open space. The ground, which is an extension of the sports complex, caters to the schools located in the surrounding. The sports complex sits right at the intersection of Old and New Nashik. As the open space is entitled to the entire city, all the adjacent activities work in unison with the open space. The food court, which is in continuum with sports complex, becomes another pulling factor for the sports activities provided. So, the placement of these blocks resulted in formation of these pockets which acted as a pavilion and as an entry to the central open space. This further got converted into an informal seating space which creates permeability by having uninterrupted path for pedestrians. This leads to having organic circulation path and a not defined entry to the central open space. This shows the evolution of this intervention. The thought was to provide a boundaryless space which would attract more people. The idea was to provide sports activity with informal seating which would create public interaction. As we can observe in the existing section that the huge block of Yashwant Vyamshala breaks the visual connection between street and the open space. There is no formation of public realm as there is no provision for pedestrian movement. As we can see in the proposed section, there is a clear vision between public realm and the central open space. The relation of human to sky helps in the formation of volumes as it does not dominate the human scale. The sports complex acts as a bridge between public realm and the central open space. The shaded seatings on the thoroughfare creates intermediate pauses. The green belt forms a buffer between vehicular movement and the pedestrian movement. The informal seating forms an unobstructed path for the user to enter the open space, also acting as an interactive space. Some of the sports activities are provided in the open space to achieve public interaction and gathering space. These are the design guidelines for this intervention. A 13-meter front setback has been given to the structure to provide foreground. The roofing has been recessed at different levels to achieve pockets to form informal sittings. The thoroughfare between the building and the street is the spillover space for the open space and enhances the quality of journey from one node to another. Thank you.
MG Road is the major commercial street which is connected to the old core of the city. At the macro level, site is playing the role of connecting the open space from the nodal junction and from the central open space. The project focuses on the redesigning of commercial edge. At the micro level, project talks about the relation between the street, structure and the open space. This has been possible by introducing the multiple activities within the one stretch of street and creating a serial vision. These were the various build form strategies showing the commercial block and its connection to the open space, making the structure more permeable and porous. After analysis, we came up with this proposal, out of which we have detailed out one option. In the existing plan, you can see the spillover of vehicles. Open space is blocked by the commercial. The main strategies for the design intervention were to create a serial vision to the street, providing the multiple activities along the street, reducing the traffic congestion, relocating the hawkers, and reducing the spillover of vehicles. Ground floor plan showing the multiple plaza and their connection to the open space. To tackle the spillover of the vehicle, we have introduced the planter beds and the raised pedestrian pathway, which is covered with the arches. For parking, the surface parking is provided for the two-wheeler and a green buffer is provided. To cater the services, we have provided a public washroom on both the nodal junction and service core for each unit. For the hawkers, we have created the pockets at every interval. The plaza consists of kiosks, interactive sitting space, a further gazebo, and a toy train station, which will create a flow and encourage more people to use open space. The below sketches shows the existing and the proposed flow of people. On the upper floor, there are total of 36 office space connected through the arcade corridors, which is overlooking the plaza and the open space. The below sketches shows the upper level circulation. In the existing situation, there is no proper provision of parking. There is a temporary parking of two-wheeler. In proposed plan, the basement consists of parking for all the commercial units. By providing a basement, there will be the less spillover of vehicle on the street. We have also provided a surface parking for the two-wheelers by providing the buffer space in between. Existing section showing the spillover activities. Proposed section showing the connection to the open space by creating the porosity in the structure. The buffer space for the carriageway not only creates a visual connectivity but also provide a good friendly walkable space. Views showing from the arcade, sitting space, buffer space and the plaza. Overall view showing the display area of the shops from the open space. View from the street showing the main entrance to the plaza and the arcade covered pedestrian pathway. View from the open space. These are the guidelines for the given proposal, showing the plot area, setback, maximum height and the ground cover of the structure.
Good morning everyone. My name is Prajakta Ole from 4th year BR, presenting the design of nodes. The site is located on the MG road, which are Mayor Signal Node and the Red Cross Signal Node. MG Road is very important street since history. It has multiple activities including shopping, institutional activities, parking, etc. After the whole analysis of the site concluded for the redesign of the nodal junctions, which encourage the movement of the pedestrians. In the existing scenario, there are multiple obstacles to the central open space, so that the barriers are formed between the open space and the pedestrians. Taking that into consideration, all the activities and the connections to create permeability between the two spaces and added activities to the street to become it lively. explores option to increase the flexibility and the connectivity to the nodes and invite more people. First proposal was to separate commercial activities and the pedestrian activity by creating the boundaries. Second was to make the space permeable with amphiseating which also act as a roof for the food stalls. Final concept is to give importance to the public gathering and the pedestrian activities. The building of Congress Bhavan is an important structure of the street, so making it a landmark for that space, the structure welcomes the street and also it gives the porosity throughout the open space. To create the connection between the building, streets and the central open space, provided green spaces with naturally shaded sittings at different intervals. Create active frontage for spillover activities and public gatherings and an entrance staircase for the structure which also act as a sitting space for the public gatherings. Remove the existing boundaries and provide a pedestrian friendly zone with no vehicular zones. Graphics shows the sitting and the open gathering space which create the pauses for the pedestrians. Informal activities on the walkways gives a lively and friendly atmosphere. Enhances more pedestrian movement and the public gathering for the social interactions. These are the guidelines for the given proposal. The area is around 1500 square meter and the maximum ground coverage is 40% of the total area. The node acts as a public gathering space and also as the entry to the open space. Mayor Signal node is very busy street node which connect the Old Agra Highway and the MG Road. Talking about the Mayor Signal node, the aim is to create the link between the street and the central open space and also build the connection between the street and the pedestrian activities. From the existing scenario, there are multiple activities on the street which disrupt the vehicular movement. To divide the vehicular and the pedestrian activities, creating swelling of nodal junctions to handle the multiple activities. These are the explorations for the node design. The first and the second exploration didn't get the proper circulation and the space for the activities. In the third exploration, give the semi-cover open space for the activities. Pause points in the form of shaded sittings are introduced in between at various places where people can get different experiences. Increase horizontal connection to promote the multimodal activities. Also provide a large sitting space with natural shading for gathering and also it overlooks all around the side. And also provide the bicycle parking. For the food shop sittings, provide shaded sitting with arranging at different levels so it becomes a good experience for the users. The space encourage public gathering and the social activities. From the first image shows the shaded sittings, second image shows the connection between the street and the node activities. Third image shows the connection of the arcade with the nodal activities. And the fourth image shows the semi-covered activity space. Raised junctions, shaded sittings and the porous edges enhance the overall character, makes the open space more usable. These are the guidelines for the given proposal. The area is around 1800 square meter and the maximum ground coverage is 18% of the total area. The node acts as an pedestrian activity space and the relaxing space and also as the entry to the open space. Thank you.
Good morning everyone. Here you can see that on the left hand side is the master plan and on the right hand side is a demonstration plan in which you can see my site which is highlighted and other part is lighten up. The entry point to the old core of the city, the Red Cross node. Significantly, it should be a celebrated junction due to its location. Instead, it is used as a dumping point as it does not offer anything to the user. After understanding the contents, we get to know that it is a public amenity plot in DP plan. So the idea of youth center is driven due to large amount of influx of youth in the area. In existing condition, there was no proper pathway for pedestrian and vegetable vendor used to sit around. So the idea was to create a landmark with swelling of junction, more user friendly and pedestrian friendly accesses and amenities of youth center. Different options were evolved in optional design. It was thought to have a contradictory identity to become a landmark, but due to that, homogeneity was lost. In option 2, site was dividing diagonally with covered passage, but due to it, frontage was not utilized properly and many dead spaces were created. In proposed build form, the structure was aligned to edges in L shape so that it invite user with its openness. Different combination is done to achieve a minimal buildup. Solid block, mass is divided and cut in L shape into different parts. Different levels are carved out from it. Similar spaces are combined for common services. With the step profile, we get the hierarchy in the build form and an open green space at every level from which different perspectives can be viewed and user get many choices. Bubble diagram is done for the understanding that how the spaces should be aligned and formed. In this, we can easily see that open space is a central node and a common node from which all spaces can be easily accessible, like youth center, space for the vegetable market, and all the edges are connected to the open space. This is the point from which we can easily view the all parts of structure, and it is a multi-purpose space used for many different activities. A step profile structure is proposed and can be considered to build if any structure comes there in future. And structure is aligned to the far end of the site and in L shape, so it doesn't overpower and built mass doesn't look bulky on viewers. Step profile bring porosity for visual connection and provide different perspective to viewers to explore cities from different height, from different perspectives and from different angles. Idea of youth center came due to the presence of educational institution and residential area around the site. For the visual connection, building is kept porous with arched structure and also to bring public room on the node inside and freeing the carriageway with the activities which happen every month due to festivals. As moving upward, building goes on reducing and take the form of step for different perspective from the side. It can be easily seen in the section that due to the step profile behind the structure can be easily viewed and visual connection can be maintained. With step profile, different viewing angle is obtained due to which user get many perspective to explore surrounding and doesn't get bored. The basic idea was to provide pedestrian walkable friendly street with pause point, with increased accessibility and due to bank on edges all vehicles were used to park and to provide parking to freeing up the edges and increasing the carriageway. These are the existing and proposed section. In this we can easily see that by providing the parking on the road front for the commercial activity will help to free us the carriageway and also by providing the sitting space on the footpath, user can use it for the sitting purposes and for the relax purposes and take a pause in between to explore city in different perspectives. These are the views from different angles. It can be seen in the views that with the openness and porosity in the structure, it will be a welcomable space and it will invite more and more user into it and the user will connect with the space. Due to arched structure, building brings openness and permeability in it and central space can be used for multiple activities. Different perspective can be maintained from different height and visual connection can easily be maintained. Many different design guidelines are used. This build-up is a proposed one, that is, it can become if any build-up is proposed on the site in near future. Some guidelines are that minimal build-up is to be done on site for the openness of the structure. Build-up is aligned in the L shape so it will have a maximum open space as its frontage. Thoroughfare is created to link Tilak Road and Main Road. Building height is restricted to the G+3 so it have a common skyline and it not overpower. Vegetable market is provided at ground level to increase the carriageway which is occupied by vendors at Mahatma Gandhi Road, and as well as to generate some economy for the complex for its maintenance. Separate entries are provided for the two different functions in the complex. The pedestrian movement is given the highest priority, therefore the raised crossings are used. Building is curved in the step profile to provide different perspective from different angles to the viewers. The edges are porous to increase the visibility and connection with the site. These all are the guidelines which can be used in the nearby future if any builder come on the site to make this site more happening and more usable space. Thank you.
Urban tourism and hospitality. This proposal introduced the Smart City Hospitality Framework, which could serve as the foundation for the destination design-driven approach to urban tourism governance and dealing with over-tourism issues. This conceptual framework is purposely designed to stimulate collaborative, informed reflection on over-tourism and urban tourism development that could support system analysis, problem structuring, and development of transition agendas and pathways within the concept of turning urban tourism into transition arena that contributes to setting in motion a sustainability transition at city level. It merges the dimension of sustainable development, environmentally responsible and equitable economic development, and city hospitality, the extent to which city has act as a good host to all its guests, including residents and businesses. Resilience resides at its center to highlight the temporal aspect of these dimensions and their interdependencies. To show how this framework can serve as a foundation for destination design efforts in practice, a short description of expression with serious gameplay sessions. The scope of the project is viable at the location of the site to fulfillment the requirement of the hotel to increase the tourism and hence the economy of the city. The strategy is to provide a well-established hospitality to the user. It not only increases the infrastructure of the area, it will provide a healthy, green, and safe premise. The complex will integrate with the surrounding and serve as a fundamental space for the community. Being on the junction, the main strategy is to create a landmark, as it has a visual connection from the road, of the running traffic, of the people walking on the pedestrian pathways, of the people having their leisure time on the open green space, and also by the people living in the surrounding buildings. These are the few suggestive option designs which help to finalize the proposed plan following the same strategies. Ground floor plan along with section and 3D visuals of site vicinity. There are two entrances to the building with lobby and cafe with washroom and back offices behind the reception with capsule lift in the center. This lift is proposed so that while using it can help to connect with the surrounding visually. First and second floor plan with front elevation and sectional elevation. First floor has kitchen and restaurant and second floor houses the amenity which the pool is kept open to sky. Service floor and typical room layout plan for 3, 4 and 5th floor with 3D visual and sectional elevation. This graphic shows how the building is connected visually with the open space with the food court in the front and with the pedestrian on the pathways, the vehicular traffic moving along the road and the old building mass behind the vicinity. These are guidelines and intentions of proposed build form with few reference images.
This demonstration area includes the old core of the city, where the streets are redefining by revitalizing the existing precinct. Redefining the parking space with commercial complex. The basic concept is based on the serial vision, the most common user of such diverse urban public spaces, allowing the user to experience and attach to the different public spaces, visually and physically. The existing scenario was there is no pedestrian pathway and the allotted parking is occupied by the slum. Providing the dedicated pedestrian and the parking is controlling the traffic on the street and increase the ease of movement. Here are some views and section. The parking is provided on the ground floor and the commercial activity is provided on first floor. The reason of putting the commercial activity is to revenue generation and multiple activities. The commercial activity is connected by 4 longitudinal axes. First is connected by bridge to youth center. Second is connected to multipurpose hall and Mahila Bachat Gat Udyog. And the other two are connected to the pedestrian. These connections are forming the trail between public spaces. These longitudinal connectors driving the flow of users entering and going out, yet giving the identity by adding spatial character, as you can see in view and section. Seating are provided for people to interact, causing a pause point. It also acting as an informal gathering space. Here are the blown up detail and the 3D visual. The view showing continuous pathway are provided to increase the ease of pedestrian movement. This view showing the pedestrian pathway is interacting within their surrounding, including the other pedestrian. This view showing the visual connection of built mass and street. So here are the guidelines. Parking is provided on ground floor. The parking capacity is 45 four-wheelers and 65 two-wheelers. On the first floor, there are 19 commercial shops are provided. The footpath is provided for pedestrian. Sittings are provided to promote interaction and also create support points.
Multifunction hall and adaptive use gathering space. The allotted site is located in heart of Nasik, in between Red Cross signal and main road area. Site have two major axes and site surrounded with highly commercial, residential and dense populated area. Building language is a traditional sloping and flat roof commercial area. Site situated in between suburban and old main road. Site offering no or less interaction space and site using existing condition using as a slum dumping yard. Pedestrianization main road and one-way road of a Red Cross area. There is very less connection between main road and Red Cross signal. So the design concept is to establish connection between main road and Red Cross signal and encourage local people and visitors to come inside the structure and encourage walkability. This is the existing plan showing dumping yard and slum area. And this is the proposed plan. So the design strategy is to provide shaded pathway, natural or artificial, to promote walkability, serial vision for better experience and attract people towards the commercial and main road area, create pause point and green spaces to encourage movement throughout the street and connect people to the main road. Multifunctional and flexible spaces can change as per events and need. And saving time, the nodal junction is a swell at the entry point to cater all floating parking. Establish connection between parking area and exhibition area. Design evolution. The design first concept is to create free-flowing green spaces and shopping arcade for the local people gathering. The second design concept was based on serial vision and hold all structure through the pedestrianized and shaded pathway. And the third concept was for parking and mall and exhibition area. This sketch showing 3D vision, serial vision. This is a section of existing theater Coming to the design plan, this is a ground floor plan and this is a first floor plan. This section showing how extended a roof covered all pathway and promote walkability, and all visitors come inside and promote local people art. The built up area is a 850 square meter, is about 50% of the proposed built up area. Central space connecting all parking and all junction create a good space environment. These are some 3D visuals. This is the entry point for activity, floating parking and other activity. This is the exterior view and this is a courtyard view. Coming to the second project, which is adaptive use and gathering space. The second proposal for preserve historical identity of old theatre by doing adaptive use and maintain landmark of the main road. Closed theatre converted into semi-open gathering space without touching building outline and create more opening and sloping roof to create a better environment by taking nature inside. The sitting and all pedestrianized walkway connected to the structure and all area face towards stage section showing how the creeper and bamboo roof create more better environment and fulfill the local people need. These views showing how the building language going harmony with the surrounding and created more opening for the better light and ventilation and connect all spaces through the internally and externally. The section CC showing how the roof area covered pathways for the people walk along the structure and showing extra roof area covering pathway. Section AA cutting through the longitudinally showing parking area, exhibition area and pedestrianized pathway. Section BB showing theater. This is a central gathering space of a theater showing how the informal sitting and stage area activity performing. This is a gathering area of an entry area of a theater. Coming to the guidelines and proposed build form. The plot size multifunction hall is 80-155 square meter. Built up area is 850 square meter approx. Side setback is a 4 meter and back setback is a 3 meter. Width and length is 37 into 52 meter and maximum height of a G plus 1. Multifunction hall and open gathering space. The intention was to show, report and promote local people art and craft and attract all visitors in this space to buy handmade things and that simultaneously support Bachat Gat Mahilas and make them self-sufficient and to fulfill local people activity. The site planning has done to connect space without visual obstacle and walls. The building form and sloping roof spaces connected to central open spaces. The proposed build form showing how local art and exhibition area. There is an intermediate post point created in between pathways. The second project build form is a 1000 square meter and built up area is a 750 square meter. Front setback is a 50 meter and for gathering space and community activity. Back setback is a 2 meter. Building height is a ground 6 meter and building width is a 70 into 40 meter. This section showing how 850 square meter open space are happening. Thank you.
Hello everyone. As the design program is to redefining the street edge, so the street is at the right top corner of the site, which is an entrance for the old city. As the objective was to give a uniform character to the street which will be memorable and image mapping experience, as the site is continuation of MG Road, which is one of the major connector to the old city. The existing activities on the street are intersecting with each other, so the activities are bifurcated in orderly manner. The strategy used for proposed plan is to make flexibility and continuity throughout the street by bifurcating walkable pedestrian area and also creating homogeneous characteristic throughout the street. So design options for demonstration plan. In option 1, pedestrian walkways were introduced while keeping the existing shops, but due to ununiform angles it was uneven. So in option 2, pedestrian walkways were introduced and uniform shops were introduced too, but there was no homogeneity. So in option 3, homogeneity
homogeneous character was given to the street and pedestrian walkways were created and streetlights were placed in such a manner that it obstruct heavy vehicles and create a celebratory entrance to the old city. So we identified that the existing facade had some flaws which are it doesn't have a character such as in architectural style and proportion. It has an unorganized display area. The hawkers are encroaching on street and hence we are trying to propose a uniform character of Vada architecture as it is a connector to the old city. Proposing a palette for facade for future development such as structural grid, door window frame, sloping roof, and etc. By swelling pedestrian area, vehicular movement is slowed and heavy vehicular movement will be restricted as shown in sections. So the interdependency of commercial and pedestrian activity will be increased as you can see in ground floor plan and upper floor plans too. Here are some views showing how the proposed strategy will work. Creating a homogeneous character throughout the street. The overhang roof of a building is creating interesting shadow effect throughout the street. So these are the guidelines for the given proposal.
Good morning. This project focuses on reforming and incorporating street-related activities, which is a very significant design factor. The intervention is done on the main road, which is at the old core of the city. The idea is to develop intervention which analyze the user activities and spaces there by planning out areas that benefit the active users, street hawkers, and vendors in the area. The larger aim is to improve the experience of users by making the neighborhood spacious, lively, and pedestrian friendly. For generations, street vending has provided vibrancy, color, and a market outlet in Indian cities. However, as the 21st century progresses, the dynamic growth of the city populations, the scale of physical development, and globalizing economics create new challenges for street vendors. Today, modern street vending plays a vital role in the urban economy as a source of jobs, revenue, and value added to the economy. This design guide explores the challenges of managing street vending in modern India and explores how inclusive urban design can generate imaginative use of space. Problems for vendors are lack of space and lack of facilities. These sketches show some of the most common forms of vending display in Nashik. Considering the strategies to have an environment of continuous pathway with a series of vendors and pedestrianizing the whole street for the better engagement. Talking about the evolution, the inspiration has been taken by the informal chaos of the existing markets. The concept focuses on various types of chaos interacting with each other and still producing a fully functional system. These sketches talks about the existing circulation and vending spaces to the proposed one, creating dialogues between the built environment and the streets, encouraging walking and gathering for the social interaction and enhancing business opportunities, removing vehicular activities to create pollution-free and walking environment for people. Introducing junctions for the informal activities, as a peculiarity of the Indian market is that it is hard to ascertain the beginning and the end of the market from a single vantage point. There are spill-out areas, as the shopkeepers have a tendency for extending beyond the area assigned to them. Keeping in this mind, the vending areas have been designed with a certain spill-out area towards the frontage. Shop modules of variable volumes have been designed. This catalog of shop sizes will cater better to the needs of the vendors pertaining to different scales of business. Designing a module which gives visual connection between the hawkers, pedestrian, and the shops. Sketches talks about the vending activity considering the factor to keep visual connection of shops by designing the cluster in a frame typology as vendors and shops have an interdependency. In the existing section, we can see how the activities are happening on the street creating a compact environment and in the proposed section, creating a dialogue between the built environment and the street. This section talks about the roof structuring and cluster of different activities with different levels of platforms. It is composed of a series of glue frames with multicolored roofing and also sustain informality of street activities as the structuring of the roof is not permanent. Nurture a sense of collective memory. Enhance imageability of the street market to give it a district character and image. Staggering a vending cluster to create pockets in between for better engagement. The continuous pathway and the series of vendors are designed centrally. Primary open space is the main focal point provided where the influx of people is maximum, create pause point for image mapping. We need to think cities in terms of transitory spaces, which means then the temporal dimension becomes very important that we should be using space on a temporal way because that's the way we can make the transition without locking yourself in one solution. Imagine time is a rigorous ways with the discourse of planning. So, segregating the activities according to time frame will create a better environment or open street where vehicular movement will have a selective time, especially for the shopkeepers. These are the typologies of vendors who will use the vending area. The elevation of the modules are designed with the different heights to have a visual connection between the shops, vendors, and the buyers. By doing this intervention, it is creating a dialogue between the built environment and the street, also improve the public realm and pedestrian experience while enhancing the character of the street. Thank you.
Good morning. The site is located at Shivaji Road. There are three main nodes adjacent to site which are Shalimar node, the open space and main road. So creating connection between these nodes with shopping street and revitalizing Moss building which will serve as a landmark to the place. These are the primary concerns. Revitalizing Moss Prison. Shivaji Road is main connecting road from Shalimar Node to Main Road. Various activities are happening on this edge. There is existing life which is forming fusion between old and new development. Moss premise which is on this street have lost its significance with the new development on edge. Edge is performing important function of interaction between people and performing function. In existing condition, there are different activity of hawking, vending, shopping, pedestrian happening within the same space, leading to chaos. So, aim was to create new identity for structure, which will create a social space and different space for activity, which will create homogeneity. In these interventions, connections are created between social spaces and second is from Shalimar Node which is major center for public transport to the main road which is shopping street. Proposed area is having a different types of shopping so a covered space is provided with revitalizing malls which is connected to a social gathering spaces which create identical structure and help in image mapping. Site is the main connecting junction between open space Shalimar and main road. So pedestrian street which is created over here is main connection between these spaces. The strategy which are followed in this design process are creating buffer between vehicular and pedestrian street, creating plaza for shopping which is connected to mosque with both areas creating interdependency with spaces which will attract people. For hawkers on street provide a good environment for shopping with pedestrian street which will reduce congestion of traffic movement in this area and this street will connect all public movement to main road. These are followed. The objective of this particular intervention is to provide social gathering space connected to mosque with adjoining shopping street which is having fusion of activity. to provide easy accessibility over mobility and barrier-free visual connection with social space in the surrounding. This will form a connection between public realm and street activity. This shows evolution of interventions. Creating plaza for shopping which will be connected to mosque, both area creating interdependency and will attract people. Social gathering space connected with the street and mosque can be used as a multi-purpose space for different activities. So, by providing this area, it is forming homogeneous environment of shopping which is creating order for hawker and pedestrian too. Proposing pedestrian street with highlighted entrance will create attractive and secured environment for pedestrians from vehicular street. Vending space, pedestrian street and spillover for shop are having different level which are creating chaos-free environment. Porous elevation is created to have visual connectivity and homogeneity in area. Sitting spaces act like a pause point for pedestrian. There is different nature of shop in this age which is consist of spillover for display shops. So providing space for display area for shop will create a organized environment. Interdependency between hawkers and shops is maintained by providing spaces for hawkers in pockets. Active edges of mosque premise having quality social space for locals, utilize land for social gathering, transitory nature which will create memory for people and architectural appreciation of the mosque structure which serve as landmark for this area. These are primary concerns of this precinct. In this slide, existing sections are showing existing activity of hawker which are occupying on street which is leading to chaos, and in proposed section how different activity are arranged and creating good environment for pedestrian and vendors is shown. Mosque building is highlighted in precinct. These are 3D visual which are showing spaces in mosque precinct. The movement of people is chronographed to realize the play of visual frame of the mosque, creating good environment for pedestrian by arranging different level for different activity. Different performing activity in social gathering space. Transitory nature of street helps in image mapping. Active edges of mosque connected with central plaza. These are guidelines of project. Creating pedestrian street connecting to central space Shalimar node to main road. Provide buffer space between vehicular street and pedestrian street. Creating different level for different activity which will help to restrict spillover of activity. Volume of different spaces changing according to function. These are creating secured movement for pedestrian. Revitalizing mosque which will serve as landmark for the space. Creating social gathering space connected to mosque and pedestrian street for multi-activity and providing various highlighted covered entries for social gathering. By concluding the project, we have tried to achieve functional and architectural homogeneity to the heritage district as it has lost relevance due to heterogeneity of various structures belonging to different timelines. Spaces become irrelevant due to single activity and can become relevant due to space for multi-activity, adding to vitality to the place. Institutionalized edge help regulate and control movement inside the open space. Serial vision talks about passage of vision assessed by visual hierarchy. Districts are enhanced with nodes. Edges define districts. Nodes sprinkled by landmarks. Nodes emphasize the connection between spaces. The life of street by having old and new fusion of activity and creating good environment. Encouraging walking and gathering for social interaction, which enhance the imageability and a sense of collective memory. All these factors combine to provide the overall image of the city. These are the books by 8 different authors which we refer to understand urban design. Thank you.